In the late 1990s, Jean-Claude Van Damme's career was going downhill. All the new films he worked on with Moshe Diamant failed, and Hollywood turned its back on the actor, ceasing to offer him any roles. Van Damme's only option for staying relevant was to star in a sequel to one of his previous hits. Because films about roundhouse kick enthusiasts were no longer popular, the majority of the actor's commercially successful films weren't suitable to save his career. Van Damme had three options: Time Cop, Hard Target, and Universal Soldier. However, there was a problem with the first two. The rights to them belonged to Universal Pictures, who refused to work with the actor after the underwhelming performances of The Quest and Sudden Death. Universal demanded exorbitant sums for the rights, making attempts to purchase them futile. The only option left was a sequel to Universal Soldier. Sony, which had a multi-film contract with the actor at the time, didn't mind the idea. Their only condition was that the film's budget should not exceed $35 million. With no other options, Van Damme agreed, and the film's sequel went into production. Unfortunately, the actor had bad luck again. The film quickly became a troublesome project, one of those in which everyone loses hope even at the production stage. Initially, the director was supposed to be William Malone, who had worked on numerous horror films and television shows. But he couldn't find common ground with Van Damme. The actor wanted to make an action movie with armies of Universal soldiers, falling helicopters, shoulder throws, and government conspiracies. Malone, in turn, tried to make a more contained movie, emphasizing a dark atmosphere and adding horror elements. Of course, Van Damme now understands that Malone's concept was reasonable and had the potential to succeed. But at that time, the actor believed that the only thing that could save his career was an action-packed film. After failing to reach an agreement with the actor and producers, Malone left to direct House on Haunted Hill, starring Jeffrey Rush and Famke Janssen. Malone didn't benefit from turning down Universal Soldier, though. The director's career ended after two consecutive failures: the already mentioned House on Haunted Hill and Fear.com. Ali Walker, who played Veronica in the first Universal Soldier, also left the project due to the lengthy pre-production process. The actress was cast in several TV series at once, and no longer had time to appear in the second Universal Soldier. Thus, the script had to be rewritten again. Everyone in Hollywood knew about the film's problems. As a result, all the directors approached by Van Damme in the studio promptly turned down the flattering offer. The filmmakers even tried to bring back director Roland Emmerich, who helmed the first film in 1992. However, by the end of the 1990s, Emmerich was already a big star and was not interested in directing a small film. As the movie risked being abandoned, it was no longer possible to postpone filming. So the director's chair went to Mick Rogers, a novice with no previous experience. Rogers was Mel Gibson's stunt double for 15 years. This means he had a chance to repeat the success of Chad Stahelski and David Litch, who went from being Keanu Reeves' stunt doubles to directing the hit film John Wick in 2014. Now, it is obvious that Mick Rogers failed to pull it off. Moreover, rumor has it that the majority of the film was directed by Jean-Claude Van Damme, who had prior experience directing The Quest. As for Mick Rogers, he primarily worked as a second-unit director, which typically involves shooting scenes like sunrises or traffic. Why he didn't leave the film when Van Damme started to upseat him remains a mystery. Perhaps he hoped that the film would be successful, and his career would take off. Or maybe all these are just rumors spread by the Belgian actor's haters. The film's test screenings were a disaster. The studio began editing the film, removing everything that could be removed. What couldn't be removed was removed as well, considering that the film's test screenings were getting progressively worse. After all the editing, the final version of the film was only 1 hour and 15 minutes long. Although the test screenings didn't yield better results, the studio hoped that the film's length would help it get more theater screenings, and, consequently, higher box office earnings. None of this helped. A lengthy pre-production period and additional filmings in post-production increased the film's final budget by $10 million, bringing it to more than $45 million. In American theaters, the film grossed only $10 million. Mick Rogers never directed again. He resumed his career in stunts and worked as a stunt coordinator for various Hollywood movies, including Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ and Apocalypto. As for Van Damme, he was rejected by the last Hollywood studio that was willing to work with him. Van Damme's next American cinema appearance was in The Expendables 2, but it can't be called a Jean-Claude movie. By the way, if it weren't for the Belgian's inflated ego, he could have saved his career. In the mid-1990s, nearly all Hollywood studios refused to work with him. Besides, the production of the sci-fi action film Abominable which many compared to Arnold Schwarzenegger's Predator, was halted. Despite everything, Warner Brothers offered Van Damme to play the main antagonist in the high-budget action film Sandblast. The studio cast Wesley Snipes as the lead, and wanted Van Damme to play his opponent. Many compared the film's script to Die Hard and Cliffhanger. Snipes was supposed to search for missing nuclear warheads in the Middle East, and clash with a group of Green Berets trying to cover up the loss of these weapons, all amidst a massive sandstorm engulfing the region. Van Damme was supposed to be the one leading the team. Many agree that this was not one of those typical roles where the villain only appears in a couple of scenes and then dies dramatically at the hands of the good guy at the end. The role was large, comparable to those of Snipes in Demolition Man or Travolta in Broken Arrow. By the way, the film's script had some similarities to Broken Arrow, though its foundation was different. This is why the studio needed two big stars, so that no one would notice that a somewhat similar project had already hit theaters in 1995. However, Van Damme didn't like that Snipes would be paid $10 million for the role, while he was only offered $5 million. Furthermore, he strongly opposed the idea of his character losing to Wesley Snipes in hand-to-hand combat at the end. So Van Damme turned down the role and started working with Moshe Diamant on Knockoff and Double Team. As for Sandblast, after Van Damme's refusal, the project fell apart and was cancelled. Thank you so much for watching, subscribe, and stay tuned.